gosh, how about that film? It was just beautiful. And we have to give some props. Would you mind standing up because Uncle John is here? Uncle John is here, so nice to see you. Thank you for coming to the show. Okay, well, we're actually going to welcome Danny back here, and we're going to welcome back our esteemed panelists. We can come on up here. We're going to have a panel talk here and a little Q&A with you on this panel called Art is Unifier, how the promise of art and creativity can unify our community. So let's come on up. Hannah and Richard, we have Tatsu. Great. So I go ahead and give an introduction to some of our esteemed panelists here. We have Tatsu Aoki, who will be here momentarily. Tatsu, we have a nickname for him. We call him the Godfather because he's been such a cornerstone of the Asian American art scene for decades, for such a long time. So he is an artist and community activist, currently working as an executive director of Asian Influx Arts Midwest. And he's a Japanese immigrant from the late 1970s, so he'll be up here in a minute. And also I'd like to welcome Richard Costas. He's a actor director, and disability advocate, and current acting commissioner for the Illinois Commission on Equity and Inclusion. Good for you. Filmmaker, actor, producer, Danny Pudi. And we have li-Epstein. She's a native Hawaiian dramatist. She's the artistic director of a Chicago-based theater company, Nothing Without a Company, and a founder of the film company Bearcat Productions. Hannah, welcome. And we have Dr. Patricia Nguyen. Did I pronounce your last name correctly? So thank you. And she's a performance artist, scholar, and educator born here in Chicago. She earned her PhD in performance studies at Northwestern University. Come on up, Tatsu. And she is executive director of Access Labs, which is a community-based arts and architecture organization advocating for the inclusive and ethical development of immigrants and refugees. Let's give our panelists a round of applause. Thanks so much. I just want to say, Danny, that film was beautiful. That film was really moving and beautiful, and it was so natural and from the heart. So thank you for making such a beautiful piece of art that way. So okay, so I think that one of the reasons why I put this festival together was I have always found the arts and the act of being creative to be personally healing. And I am the children of immigrants, of Korean immigrants. So I found that we all kind of have a narrative about growing up a little bit different or just not fitting in some kind of situation here and wherever you're from in America. So with that in mind, again, I found creativity in the arts to be healing, which is why I have this festival, which is why I thought this topic would be pretty interesting. So first of all, since this is we're addressing the APIDA diaspora, maybe would you mind each of you going down the line and just talking about how you identify as being in this APIDA diaspora? You can start, Richard.
Hi, I'm Richard. My pronouns are he, his, him. I identify as a South Asian artist. I am half Indian, half Greek. So that's kind of how I identify. Now I'm in some of the struggles that you're having in the film, their identity really resonated with me in terms of how it can be very difficult to go into very white spaces as a South Asian, and that kind of pressure suits being. So I want to just echo what Mia said. It's a wonderful, beautiful film.
Daniel Pudi, I think my name reflects my identity. Pronouns are he, him. My mother's from Poland, my father's from India. I identify as a South Asian, Polish, American artist, writer, performer.
Aloha, I am li-Epstein. I am Native Hawaiian, Chinese, and Caucasian. My father is Jewish by culture, and my wife is Jewish by culture and by religion. So I'm Hawaiian. I like to say Hawaiian. I've never heard that.
Thank you to the organizers. I just wanted to give a shout out to Mia and Tommy for the audience. I'm Patricia Nguyen, and I'm a child of Vietnamese refugees. Born and raised in Chicago, and I rep Chicago real hard. So those teams, Bulls, because Thank you.
Hello, Mia Park. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for being here.
I'm Tatsu Aoki. I am an immigrant. I came here in the late 70s to Chicago and migrated myself to the Asian American community, working as an artist and community activist.
So this is like such a beautiful representation of the community, and kind of like some kind of dream team. I'm like, who's on the stage right now? There's so much talent. So including our interpreters. I mean, it's just a lovely representation here, so thanks. Okay, so we got some questions. I wanted to know how you each identify yourself as an artist or as a creator, and how your art making has, you think, unified you and your community. I guess we should talk first about what community is to you in this sense, in this APIDA sense, and how you as an artist or creator, how do you think your art has like unified you with it or not? And Tatsu, I want to start with you. We'll walk this way. Put you on the spot.
Yeah, that's hard. I identify myself as an artist of sound image. I play music and I do some visual art. Then I try to embrace the community. I represent one of the arts organization called Asian Improv Arts Midwest, which is the sister organization of Asian Improv Arts in San Francisco. Sort of Asian American arts presenter. We organize and we kind of nurture artists in our own housing. So yes, the community for me, of course, I started with the immigrant community. That's a little bit isolated community. So I went through the evolution from being a foreign visitor participating in Chicago arts into the 40 years now. I'm part of the Asian American community. As I build my own crews, my own organization, my own family, I'm completely embraced into the Asian American community.
I do want to give Tatsu a shout out because again, like I came up in the 90s and he was already on the scene doing his Asian American jazz festival, and little nepotism here, I drummed in one of his Western Eastern music fusion bands. Oh my gosh, we played everywhere. We played the Chicago Jazz Festival, put out a couple CDs, cassette tapes, But so really Tatsu's been such a forefront person in this community trying to unify our very diverse community through the arts. So thank you for that. Seen and heard. And how about you, Patricia?
Oh yeah, this is a complicated question for me in so many ways because my parents are Vietnamese refugees, and a lot of the time Southeast Asians aren't really, seen as part of the dominant notion of Asian America in some ways. And so it's something to navigate, but it's interesting for me, I came into the arts through Black artists, actually. One of my mentors was a Black Panther who taught art history, and I was like, what is a Black Panther doing teaching art history? And what does it mean to learn about these transnational histories of war and imperialism, colonization, and how does the arts offer a framework and lens to actually make sense of it? And like your film was so beautiful because it connects to all these different histories of migration, but really centers it on the story and the narrative. And so I feel like no matter what different types of mediums I use and play with, or different folks and artists that I'm working with, it's all about how do we work with that as a vehicle to tell the story and tell our family story, our people's stories, these stories of histories that are undertold and underrepresented in so many ways. And so, yeah, I'll leave it at that. Yeah.
Hannah, how about you?
in the mainland here in the lower 48 in the continental US, my community is APIDA. In Hawaii, my community is every type of Asian, yeah? Every type of Pacific Islander, not just Hawaiian. We're talking about Samoan, Tongan. Like, it's very strange moving here 20 years ago and feeling racism for the first time and feeling different for the first time. And so my work in theater and in film is bringing that community, that piece of every single ethnicity that makes the whole of what we are. And I feel like we don't get a lot of that here in Chicago. And so I have to produce my own work to be able to cast it correctly, to be able to show the language correctly for people to hear it in the right ways. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I talk about bringing it. There was a panel of play selection committee members who chose one of Hannah's plays that we're reading at the Goodman tomorrow. And the stories you write are just amazing. They really are authentic Hawaiian stories. I saw a play that, can I just take a second here and talk about Hannah? Okay. So she wrote, did you direct that play too? Not one, but two. But she wrote and she produced it on the lake. And it was set in Hawaii in the summertime. So you're outside on the grass in Rogers Park, and there's water behind you, and you're watching this play like on the rocks. It was so great. And it was about people who were taking street drugs in Hawaii, much more complicated than that. But I was like, where am I and who writes this kind of material, right? It was great. It was a great production. Okay, Mr. Pudi, how about you?
Okay. Yeah, complicated question. Let's see here. I want to say a couple things. Yeah, so good to see you. Thank you to this festival for having us. I really appreciate it. Thank you to the Chicago Film Office for giving us permits to shoot in Chicago. Thank you to Harper, my amazing director. Thank you to Johnny Uncle, my uncle's here. The reason I'm saying that too is that I'm a fan of collaboration. I have been a product of collaboration. I started out working with Stir Friday Night in Chicago, which is an Asian American theater company. We rehearsed at the Japanese American Center, and then I would Polish dance in a different venue. Identity is front of mind for me. It's always been going from venue to venue, collaborating with artists. Healing is a big part of it. Healing and understanding and identity. It's always been something that I've been kind of working on and just been interested in as an artist. Chicago has this like clash of so much. It's just got a clash of everything. It's so immediate and it can be overwhelming. But for me, comedy and character was the way I process. It's the way for me to understand better and kind of feels how I like to explore the world. And so I think in terms of what I like to do is explore character and explore identity. And I think more and more I'm really interested in the messiness of all our lives. I think that's something that's just interesting for me to explore, especially now that I'm a dad and I see how messy life is. I think it's fun to really just kind of realize that we're all trying to make sense of our day. And that's just something I'm kind of digging into more and more and excited about.
Cool, thanks. Okay, Richard.
I think my relationship with community can be very complicated in that my identity is always evolving. It's not static in any kind of way. I am half South Asian. My mother was born in Mumbai, but she was an orphan and she was raised in a very Catholic convent. So I was raised in a very westernized kind of environment. So I never felt like, even growing up, I never felt Indian because I never had the experience of growing up in a very Indian culture. I was always very, very westernized, very, very Greek culture from my dad's side. And so growing up, my community was just wherever I was accepted, and where that was really in arts, was really in the theater, on the stages, wherever it was. And as I've grown older and as I've been able to move and travel around, I've been finding community in other places. I remember when I first moved here to Chicago and I got to actually work with other artists of color, other artists who were deaf, other artists like me, how incredible that was to find a place not only where I was accepted, but where I got to have these shared experiences with people that understood not the entirety of what it's like to be me, but just like this small, tiny portion. And just having that connection now is where I find the joy. And there's moments of joy where I connect with even a piece of film like this, or when I go see a show, or when I go to the Art Institute and I see some paintings that I really connect with. Those are where I find my community now, and that's why art is so important to me. It's why festivals like this are so important, not just to me, but to everyone, because we can find our community in those small moments where we find joy, where we find connection, and that's why I love the most art.
Oh, that's great, beautiful. And I'm so excited to like support people here. So I've seen Richard act Shakespeare. I've seen plays of Shakespeare that Richard has directed. So by all means, you're talking about these small connections. Shakespeare's pretty big and important. So I think you can kind of do the big stuff too. So I love how you said that identity is dynamic, and I think that creating people, creation is also dynamic. So I feel like myself as an, I guess I used to identify mostly as a musician, as a drummer, but now as an actor. I always felt a little pressure to represent something more than just me like reading a script or me just like playing a rock song or something like that. And I think that's why personally I've been like being an advocate for Asian American arts for over 20 years in Chicago. So I'm wondering, in my personal tract of that, like, again, it's a healing journey. Is it self-fulfilling? Is it to just want people to see me and I happen to be this Korean American female drummer acting person, so see me and this is what I'm bringing with me? Or is it really like an obligation? Like, is a sense, I'm wondering if each of you feel like a sense of responsibility. Obviously, we're all authentic at bringing our whole selves. But like, how much responsibility do you feel like you need to bring your identity or your Asianness or your APIDA-ness to your work? Hi, so with you, you're in the middle.
Yeah, 100%. All of me needs to go into my work. My culture needs to go into my work. It's what raised me. And so I can't put work out there that's not authentically me. I can't re-educate when I'm not putting myself into it. And I can't tell someone else from Hawaii or who is Hawaiian that they're being themselves 100% if I'm not. There's a million Hawaiians, possibly hundreds of Hawaiians on this earth, and they're all 100% Hawaiian even if their blood isn't. And we're all 100% of who we are even if our blood isn't. And if you're not bringing it, I'm sorry, I'm like totally losing my train of thought, but it's that whole thing of your ancestors are telling you to do the work. And if you don't do the work, you don't exist in the world. So that's where I'm at with it.
I think all the artists kind of understand that we live by producing things. But I think for the responsibility, I always thought in many years to produce art, there's two things that we always have to do, and we can't do one without the other. But the two things, one is the art, and the art is the part that our impulse and creativity produce and express things. And this one doesn't really have ethnic identity. It just have artistic impulse. But what comes along with the creation is positioning. And we always create art with our positioning. And that positioning has a responsibility. That has a social content. And that has an environmental context of what we do. So we automatically create something, and when we create, we present a position of ourselves. And that's when we have to say who we are. And it comes with the arts. So I never had to feel like I have to make something about my being Asian American. It comes with my creation and the positioning automatically. And I'm sure it's same for everybody.
Thanks for that, Tatsu. Patricia, what do you think?
what you were saying about like our ancestors calling us, or just like these stories, it's like sometimes I don't want to tell them, you know, and it's just like it's being begged, like it's being like, it's like something, it's like a spirit, it's like something, and then the medium of art unfolds the story in these ways that are like, oh, this is what I'm trying to work through, this is what I'm trying to tell, this is what I'm trying to make sense of. Like, for example, in my performance artwork, I work with water a lot, and in Vietnamese, nước means homeland, country, nation. And so I use that material thinking about memory and thinking about the body and thinking about how our body is majority water, right? And so like those memories, those inherited like histories and traumas are like in our bodies. And so when I tap on water, I tap on the metals in that way to kind of conjure it, to pull it out in some capacity. And so it's this other calling in some ways that pulls it out, I feel. And then it's different stories require different mediums. It could be film, it could be music, it could be performance, but I don't know until the story is revealed, or I don't know until I'm working with that thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there are a lot of stories to tell, a lot of ways to do it, right? Yeah. So, Danny, I know you just had this film that obviously talked about a lot about the cultural background that you have. Do you have anything more that you want to say about that? Like how much?
Those are all beautiful answers.
Can I also just intro myself?
Yeah.
Because you're on TV, you know, and like now you're famous, but I mean, you are on the level where you're a known person, and this is obviously a passion project you did for yourself. But like when you're doing sitcom, or when you're playing the janitor, or whatever you're doing, again, like how much of who you are in this cultural sense or this ethnic sense are you bringing to those characters because you're under direction and you're on TV?
So yes, that's an interesting thing. I think, so yes, this is a passion project. And I think for me personally, growing up, I did not see myself reflected on television or in storytelling that I watched. And so that is something that I'm very aware of. And like currently in my TV show, the writers and I will collaborate when there's a moment for me to bring in my own personal history that makes sense and it's natural and organic to the story. And we had my character Brad Bakshi. It's the first time I've gotten to play someone who is half Indian and half Polish. And I think that it's really thrilling in a way, but it's not me because he collects human hair and I do not do that.
It's okay if you do, no judgment. Say so.
He's a little bit of a sociopath. But there is, I think as an artist, there is a responsibility. There just is a responsibility naturally when you step into anything that if you want to do it, you have to just do it, and you have to dive into it with everything that you have, and you hope it makes sense, and you hope you're being honest and authentic, and then if there's room to find moments that actually like work as for the character and you, part of you and your imagination actually meld with the story that you're trying to tell, that's the beauty of it, when you can kind of be like, oh, this actually makes sense. My character, Brad, might say something in Polish in this moment that makes sense, you know? I think there's more of a willingness and openness to that too now. I think audiences and writing staffs are becoming more open to that and realizing like, oh, this is the reality. This is the reality of life now. So I'm excited for that next level of that. I'm excited for more diverse writer rooms. I'm excited for that. So that way we have opportunities to layer in storytelling that makes sense and that we're missing. Because I just feel like there's so many times you could be missing something beautiful that makes sense, you know, because a story can go a zillion different ways, you know. But I think that I'm excited about the collaboration and kind of a willingness to be like, let's see where else we can go and what else we can explore. I think this for me in particular was just a passion project that I want to do for myself as an artist, to just understand myself better, and that does require a little bit of just diving in and being scared.
Thank you for the vulnerability. I can't even say the word. I'm not vulnerable. I know how you, Richard.
Yeah, I think you've all said almost everything that I wanted to say. But I will add that as an actor, I always try to tell myself, you always have to put a little bit of yourself into anything you do, and if you don't, you're not acting, you're just lying. And I do believe that you need to have a sense of truth in everything you do. And I see that in all the performances I've watched you for a big fan of yours. And so I've watched all of your performances, and being able to see the truth in the stories that you tell, how you tell them, even if you don't connect with them in a larger way, just put this one element that is uniquely you is so important. And I agree with you in that. I'm seeing a lot of the writer stuff nowadays being willing to go to those spaces, work with the actors to find these elements of themselves into there, and just shout out to the Writers Guild of America or everything they're doing.
By the way, we are going to open up for Q&A. We're on time now, but we have more time than I thought, which is great. We've got a couple microphones, so we can start throwing out any questions open we can go off topic if you'd like to. So just, I don't want to, put you on the spot, but definitely open for Q&A, okay? So you can start thinking about that. So the other side of the coin is when trying to bring in our heritage, or maybe not doing that, fails. So like I said, I came up as a professional actress in Chicago in the 90s, and I cannot tell you back then how many times I've had like dragon lady eye makeup put on me. Or this is one story, I was shooting something for United Airlines at O'Hara. And United had just, oh my God, all the Dove commercials we've done, hello actors, like all this. So O'Hara had just opened up a direct flight from Hong Kong to Seoul, right? And they needed somebody Asian, Korean, to buy a fake airline ticket at the counter. And they were like, bring your traditional Korean clothes. And I was like, for my Korean people, I was like, nobody wears the hanbok on the airplane, especially this is like a business commuter thing, right? So I was telling my agent, and I was trying to tell him, I was like, look, I'll bring what I have, but if this goes to print, first of all, you gotta culturally do this, and why am I? Again, I'm the cultural ambassador, because it's a bunch of non-Asians, non-Koreans writing this thing, and the director was a white guy, and I was like, look, I'll bring it, but I kept telling everybody, and then they did the dragon lady makeup, and I'm simmering, I'm getting really pissed off, but I really want to make it, and someday I want to make a TV show like Community, so I have to do this commercial, and oh my God, and I'm bringing this humble. And there's like this bow, the bad Korean, I forget the name of the bow, but it was dragging on the ground behind me. I didn't realize, and somebody said, excuse me, your kimono thing is on the ground. And I was like, oh my God, and I didn't say a thing. So I swallowed whatever Asian pride I had and inauthenticity. So I picked up my kimono thingy, let the lady do the dragon makeup, and we did oh my God, and I wore a South Korean pin on my lapel too. They're like, do you have anything? I was like, I have a lapel my dad gave me for like a gift once. So it was like so inauthentic. And I got there and I did the shoot because, compliant actor. And I finally told the director, remember, he was a really, really nice young guy. And I said, look, I'm going to tell you to you straight. This is wrong on so many levels. If you really are trying to sell this silly airline, people don't look like, they look like me, but they're not going to look like this flying from Hong Kong to Seoul. Like, you're going to get laughed at. Your advertising company's going to lose this, whatever. And that's all I said. Where inside of me, there were a million angry Asian and Asian American things I wanted to yell at. So is that art? I don't know, United Commercial or Industrial? I don't know what happened to it. So that being said, is my personal story. I'm wondering if any of you in an artistic moment felt like you weren't being authentic to, we tried to rehearse ourselves, but I had fear. I didn't want to get fired. I wanted the gig, so I didn't.
I think it happens a lot in the movie and theater industry. Very little happens in the music industry, and we often do not have to do that, except when we have this thing called jamming, where we have to produce music for somebody. They would say the same thing. Tatsu, can you play the shamisen in the track? Or, can you bring the koto? Can you bring the taiko? Which I do, but I think it's very similar thing. But I see a lot of issues with that as I teach Asian identity class at the school, you know, that's part of the big issues that we all have to go through. You know.
I mean, yeah, I've talked about this. I think early on, starting out, I had to play 3 different Sanjays. And I tried to make each one unique. And, but yeah, so I think I relate to that experience. I've had moments like that where you have to be an ambassador. And like you were saying, I didn't grow up super embedded into South Asian culture. I am South Asian. But when you all of a sudden have to show up on a set and be the expert and not only, and you find yourself educating and you just thought you were going to act, it's terrifying, you know, and it's very stressful. So I definitely had moments like that. I had a moment one time where I was supposed to dance with like a cow. This was actually had nothing to do with my race, by the way. This was just like this weird commercial, but I just couldn't do that. That was fun. But yeah, you have those moments sometimes where you find yourself there and you have to question, like, it's tough. It can be tough as an artist to be like, what is this? Like, where's the line here? And especially in comedy too, sometimes. Sometimes you don't know, you know? And, you know, you kind of have to hope for the best, and you have to, it's good if you talk to the director too. I'm much more aware of that now. I try to have conversations with the writer, the director, whoever's involved, just to find intentions. Just get intentions, and I think you can kind of get a better sense of where people are at. Sometimes you have to just trust the art, but you also have to feel like we're speaking to something that is beyond just like a label or whatever that is, right?
Thanks. Do either of you, Richard or Patricia or Anna?
Everyone in the mainland is so PC, and so I have to kind of calm down a lot of my racial jokes in my plays, because in Hawaii we make fun of everybody, including ourselves, so it's okay. It's okay to tell a Vietnamese joke, it's okay to tell a Japanese joke, it's okay to tell specific race jokes. And when Not One Bought Two happened here, the first preview audience I had, a lot of people were very offended because I told jokes. There were jokes in the play that were specifically racial, and they just weren't understood here. So I did kind of shave a little bit down just for the audience to like be able to digest it a bit. And I don't know to this day if I am doing the right thing, if I'm authentically showing Hawaii, if I'm not making fun of everybody. So yeah, there is that too. I still don't know.
How about you, Patricia?
My response is very different. It's like a different side of it. It's more just thinking about sometimes how arts and culture gets so depoliticized. And so then there's this divide between arts and culture and then the political. And so there's a scene that in this book by Dylan Rodriguez where he's talking about how there's like this, I think like Filipino tinikling that's happening, and then a protest that's happening right next to it. And then neither of these worlds see each other in some ways, right? And so like, for me, it's tangentially related, but related in terms of just like, sometimes how arts and culture can be depoliticized in these ways that strip us of these histories of how we got here in the first place.
Yeah. Do you have any comment on that?
I've been very lucky in terms of my racial identity that I've never been asked to perform any sort of stereotypes of South Asian, but I have been asked to take on characteristics of what hearing people think that people are like, which is very, very heavy accents, being fluent in sign language. And thankfully, I'm also kind of an arrogant prick. And so I'm telling people that I'm not going to do that. This is wrong, this is not the way it's going to happen. Especially because in the disability community, it's so rare for people to be given opportunities, film, television, theater, that it became very, very important to me at a very, very early age to make sure that people are accurately represented. And so I always make sure to try and say, maybe not me, but these are the people you should be looking at. And I think that's part of what being a community is about, is being able to acknowledge, like, maybe you're not the right person for this specific piece of art, and I know this other person that is, because I've been a part of this community. I know what they can do. I can make these recommendations to you. And
You know, I have to say, thanks for that. And Chicago, well, a lot of us are, I'm from Philly, but immigrant, and then you're now in LA. But I feel like Chicago's got this amazingly supportive arts community, right? Like, we really do. I mean, I think that to your point of saying that I'm not the right person for this, but I know somebody that is, you know. I mean, when I started acting here commercially in the 90s, there was probably like maybe under 15 in the same group. Oh, and by the way, back then, because advertising's based on like spending dollars. So back then in the 90s when I started acting, it was Latin, and there was a Latino, or they said Hispanic at the time. It was Hispanic and Asian actors in one group. So if they wanted like someone who was Asian and they weren't sure if they wanted this look or that look, I would show up to all casting calls with like Latin people, and we're like, hi, how are you? You know, it was always really supportive, but there was a little eye roll because we knew why we were there. Because advertising-wise, we were the exact same demographic. I mean, that's what bullshit it used to be, you know? And you're right, to your point, Danny, it's better. I feel like the different, like we're growing, and because we're in the writer's room once the strike gets resolved favorably, but you know, and we are the directors and the writers and the academics, you know, the directors, which is great. So that leads me to my next question. I'm wondering what each of you think would be like the ideal creative environment for each of you. Like, do we need an Asian American Pacific Islander month? Did I need to put this festival together? Like, what's your ideal vision of being integrated in this creative world? Or in the world as an artist?
yeah, I got that.
Okay.
I would say the ideal creative environment for me would probably be a place where I feel joy. The answer to it is simple and easy answer, but I wake up every morning, first thing I do is I grab my phone and I look at the news, and I see once again the world's on fire, and I just want to feel some joy. And the joy can take many forms. It can be a comedy play, it can be watching a movie, it doesn't have to be sort of laughter all the time, but it can just be a joy in the sense of connections between people, a joy in the sense of community, a joy in just the act of creation, a joy in knowing that maybe today wasn't the best day of creative words, but tomorrow might be, knowing I always have that next day forward, because the room that I've curated, the room that others have curated with me, allow me to express myself in a very authentic and true way. And I think by expressing yourself with that truth, that you are who you are, and it allows me to create a very authentic experience of art, whatever that is. And it allows me, as someone who goes into a room who wasn't involved in the creating, you can tell. You absolutely can tell when something was created with joy, or something was just created to check off the box or to make some money or anything like that. You can tell 100% anytime you enter a room, you listen to a piece of music, you look at a piece of art, you can always tell when joy has been involved in the act of creation. And that's what I look forward to the most.
That's great.
Ideal circumstances. I feel very fortunate. I feel very fortunate. I feel like I get to do so often what I do love to do, which I love to be in an ensemble with people. Joy is a big part of it. Making something. I love just making something. And that's not necessarily on a set. It could be with friends, it could be with my family. I love the act of being together and making something. That to me is like the ideal. It's like we could be making a dinner, we could be making a weird puzzle together with my family, we could be playing charades, or I could be on a set creating something really interesting with just a really dynamic layer character that surprises me. If I can be doing all those things in a day, that is an ideal day. And I think moving also with myself as a person, I feel like it's important to take inventory of myself, of where I'm at today. Am I happy? What am I interested in today? Am I still curious? What am I curious about today that I maybe haven't explored yet because I'm scared? Or so for me, it's more important to be like now, like really kind of centering my own stories where people like me, stories. If I can be involved in that, from maybe directing or producing, I'm excited about that. That feels kind of like another way to be involved in storytelling. And also I want to be able to be playing characters that like slip on a banana peel, but also are doing action sequences like an RRR. So that's nice.
That's it.
I think the perfect creative environment for me is collaborating with people who look like all of us on stage in the audience here tonight. Where I don't have to look for the exits, where I don't have to look over my shoulder, where I don't need to explain who I am innately to be able to create art with people. And so I don't create art by myself, I never have. Everything I write comes from other people and the experiences and things that I see. And so in that way, I can't have art without collaboration, and I can't have collaboration without diversity. And so this is my perfect creative feeling.
All right, what are we doing now? What are we going to make? Let's make it.
This is, we're making it right now.
Nice. No, that's really great. I think about these pockets of moments that I felt that with Access Lab, my arts and architecture organization, these festivals that we would throw where we actually had a space on the Argyle train. Well, it was like a vacant storefront underneath the train tracks that we would sweep all the time because then it would shake every time the train passed and the dust would collect and all of that. But we turned it into this nighttime Southeast Asian night market feel. We brought all these different artists, and it was this moment. We brought Tatsu's taiko drumming crew there and took over the streets, and it was just this moment of collaboration, this moment where Chicago's so deeply segregated, to be able to bring artists from the south side, from the west side, from the north, all these different places, and gather together across racial lines, across geographic lines, gender, sexual, all of that, to just hang out. It was really beautiful. And there was this woman that I worked with who actually is an amazing activist against mass incarceration, against state violence, and was incarcerated for over 30 years. Grew up in that neighborhood, came to that festival and was like, oh, this feels like what Uptown was like in the 80s and the 90s. And it was that's that feeling. That's that beautiful moment where we can create that sense of community, right? That you were asking us about before. Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah. Yes, Nguyen Park should continue the festival.
Yes.
So I think my dream environment is we can be who we are, as everybody will say, but we could be who we are, but not a special group of people, which is who we are right now. And so if we can figure out a way to normalize our cultural diversity, that's the goal of having a different festival, but we could still be who we are. We are not a special kind of a people doing this. So my famous story about the salad bowl, mixed salad bowl, is what we want. Is that cucumber is a cucumber, tomato is tomato, lettuce is lettuce, onion is onion, and we don't have to mix them up. We just eat them together, and it tastes good with a little dressing on it. So I think
miso, tahini, lemon on there.
So we do have to continue to hold on special gathering for us, like this festival.
We do,
Our Asian American Jazz Festival, the Asian American Showcase in Chicago, Asian American Theater. But we need to work together to normalize our cultural diversity, so we no longer are a special bunch of people doing it.
Agreed. And to be honest, sometimes I'm just being very transparent because I can't say the roar of a wolf. But I feel like sometimes, because the arts are so healing, right? And in this process, and we talk about the sense of community. The what if game never win. Like you never win the what if game because it just doesn't work. But sometimes I wonder, well, what if I wasn't Korean? Like, would I have this much to say? Maybe I would have something else to identify with. But it's so much of that. Enough about me. What about you? Do we have any questions for our panelists up here? We've got Alex here. Fantastic. Alex, by the way, has been so fun about it. And also Tabri Crouch. Tabri has left this beautiful art institute to work in the city of New York. And it was because of her that this whole thing started. And I actually was like, Tabri, try to get Danny, get running. Let's see if we can, and this, honestly, this is what it started from here, and then none of the venues said no, and now it's just like 4-venue 3-day festival. So it started here at the Cultural Center, honestly. Thank you. So anyway, we've got Tim there in the back too. Does anybody have any questions for anybody here about anything? Oh, great.
First of all, I just want to say that was an incredible movie, so thank you for sharing that, and thanks Mia for coordinating this. Something I've been thinking about a lot recently is how groups like Stir Friday Night and organizations and theaters like that were created a long time ago when people like us were excluded either actively or through like negligence from the big institutions, and how Stir Friday Night and groups like that have served such an important role in the past, but now that the big institutions, they're attempting to include us. Something I've been thinking about a lot, it's of course an imperfect inclusion, but what do these organizations, what does the role for them look like in the future now that there's an attempt at inclusion? What does Stir Friday Night and all Asian artist groups, what should we be doing to keep the conversation going forward?
Oh yeah, so one of the things that we all do with a small organization to manage the small organization is to avoid being controlled. So there's always major or minor. White people have a majority of all the control of many of the industries, many of the different kinds of arts, music, theater, movies. So we could be included in these things, but that's not going to be our happiness. We need to gain some place where we could have our own control. So, Stir Friday Night is one of the examples too. They can produce their own show. We can produce our own festival. Mia can produce her own festival. And this is us being in control. And this smaller organization allows us to actually be there. And also being included by the bigger institutions, fine. But we still need to keep our small institutions going.
Yeah, I feel like Danny, maybe you can talk about that on your level of where you're working.
So, I mean, for me, it was pivotal and in many ways formative for my comedy background, having a home base. We rehearsed every Sunday night. It was a free place. Ranjit Sari at the time, and he's been my mentor for years. He brought me in and Raska Mathur, but it was a really wonderful, warm space where I got to play and really just play and practice and have reps and not have to worry about consequences as much, but really just hone my own voice. And I think that's so important. I don't know what Stir Friday Night is doing these days, but that was so important to me. And I think it's important for an artist to have a safe space. Just have a place where you can hone your voice and continue to work on your voice and just be supported. So I do hope that they continue to provide that, and I think there's room for that. I think there's room for all of these places. The more support you have as an artist, the better. I would be in 3 groups if I could that supported me. It would help.
So, and just to add on his comment, I think the smaller institution, there's a spiritual mentorship that takes place in a smaller organization, which bigger institution may not give. So we all grew up in a small institution with spiritual mentorship from some leaders, wow, I want to be a Japanese American artist like that. So I think that's really, really important factors of all of us.
To talk about the institution level, one of the volunteers involved heavily in this festival is Caucasians, they call them allies. And she's been doing so much work. And she made a joke, not joke. She said, and forgive me, Jonah and the Cultural Center, but she said, well, of course the venues are gonna say yes. They don't wanna look racist. And so we're talking, because I was saying, you can't believe how, it's such an honor. And like I said, joke, not joke. We want to show our best face, and I think institutionally speaking, because the world is more open, and we see what it's like when it's we know what the world can be like when we have bad leadership. I'm thinking like president, you know what I'm talking about, and when the world tries to get smaller. So I think that the larger institutions want to have the best foot forward and want to be more global and aware, and we all know the arts is an important part of that. So. But I also think that she's right, and talking as an arts administrator white woman, there is still a little bit, we need the EDI, equity, diversity, and inclusion. Corporations still need all that. Another quick story, there's a corporate, they're a trading firm, and I asked if they wanted to sponsor the festival, and they said no, but we'll put this out in our Slack channel, to their communicating. About over 50% of their employees are Asian, and over 50% of them are immigrants, right, Asian immigrants. So I was like, yeah, sure. And then when I tried to push it again, the gatekeeper, the key holder there to their whole Slack, hey, workers, let's hang out, wrote in there saying, I texted all this to our EDI members, smiley face emoticon. And I was like, no, the point is this arts festival is for everybody. And this is like a big trading firm in Chicago. I'm gonna talk institutional level. And I said, the festival's for everybody, not just the mostly Asian staff that you have. And she came back with a defensive answer, and you just drop it, because I'm not getting paid to educate her. She could pay me though. But I'm not getting paid to, so I'm not going to. But that's to the level of, so yeah, there's an EDI group, but there's still not quite a level of comprehension, right? Does anybody, go ahead, Patricia.
I'm excited about this new administration coming in, the Brandon Johnson's administration, and the arts and culture team, that transition team. I actually had a really great conversation with one of the people on their team who is just really trying to advocate for artists and really trying to figure out how to pump more money into public arts education, and actually thinking about the livelihood of an artist, where they can play, dream, experiment, figure things out, and not have to worry about getting, how they're gonna have food on the table, right? And so this is actually an exciting, beautiful moment to be in Chicago and to be an art maker in Chicago. Yeah.
Cool. If we're okay, I'd like to take some more questions. Yeah, I think he had a question first. And then Matthew over there. Cool.
Hi, thank you. Hi, I'm James. I'm also an actor and improviser here in Chicago. But I feel like everyone as an artist, regardless of discipline, here's the thing of saying follow the fear, or facing fear and tackling fear. And I talk about this a lot with personally about how to take on the mantle, the responsibility of that fear of putting on a show or doing improv, stepping out on the scene, or doing art, whatever it is. So how do you, each of you, fight fear or fight that voice inside of you that says, hey, this is not great, or this might not work out, it might fail, So I was looking for that inspiration from all of you said.
Hey, thanks, James. And do you want to start us off?
Could you repeat the question for me?
Sure. The question is he asked how we face fear when we're creating, or just in general?
In general?
Yeah, how we handle fear in general.
After I finish crying in the bathroom. No, I have a group of friends that I love very, very deeply. Some of them are collaborators within the arts, some of them aren't involved in the arts at all. And I do really give fairness. I know it's a cliche kind of thing. Your chosen family, if you will. And my connections with them, being able to have some people to go to talk openly and honestly with, is kind of how I'm able to navigate a lot of very scary parts of this industry, scary parts of life in general. I I guess that's really what I would say. Just have to be open and honest with the people that you love, the people that you care about, because they're going to be ones who help guide you, because you can't get through anything alone. And I think it's very, very true of art as well. You have to make art in collaboration with others. Even if you think you're doing art that is just for yourself, by yourself, like painting, unless you put it in front of someone, it's no longer art. That fear is going to hold you back from letting people enjoy your art, letting people see your art, and letting people see who you are. And I think in presenting art that is true and authentic to myself, I'm able to sort of break down those fear of feeling too much about myself. And it's a very, very, very difficult thing to navigate. And just look to your friends, I guess. That's how I do it.
Crying in the bathroom, yes. Look to your friends, yes. Both those things are very true. I think the fear is there. It's going to be there. That's just part of it. It really is part of it. Every time you improvise, it's terrifying. And it's exhilarating, you know? I try to remember why I'm doing this, you know? So I just try to remember anything I'm doing, like, why am I doing this? Like, what's it for? Is it servicing a question that I have? What is the purpose? Like, and sometimes you have to be like, is that purpose greater than the fear? It's like, what can I live with? You know, and for me, it's like, I have to answer this question because I'm dwelling on it. That to me is more important than the fear, right? They're both gonna be there, right? I try to remember the good comedy shows. That really will drive me. I try to remember the times where it worked out. You know, there are times where it's not going to work out, but when you're really kind of down in the dumps or whatever, thinking about the time where you're like, I connected with someone over this thing that I was terrified about, and it wasn't that. Like I put so much we put so much into our heads, and we create this whole narrative, and sometimes it's just like, just release it, you know, and remember the connections you have. Talk to your friends, and acknowledge that this is just something there, but the thrill of creating, to me, is greater.
Professionally speaking, surround yourself with good people who are good inside of them, because that won't turn you wrong in any artist situation. Personally speaking, I have no clue. I'm terrified of snakes, and I will not go on hikes in the woods because there are snakes that live in this world, not in Hawaii. There are no snakes there. So, I mean, yeah, just professionally, definitely surround yourself with good people who you can collaborate with, who you can trust. If you can't trust them, you can't work with them. That fear will stay with you. No snakes. No snakes.
I agree with everything everyone said, and I would just add to at some point I also had to release myself of people who were like projecting their fears onto me, and then I had to delineate their voice and their fears as not my voice and not my fear, to be able to then hear my own fear and then go to the bathroom, right? It's like, okay, these tears are mine, those tears are yours. Yeah. And so, but I think it's just like the foundation of that is like being with people who you trust, being with people you can be vulnerable with, being with people who you can play and hang out and be curious with, and who can ground you and remind yourself of your purpose. And even if you don't know what your purpose is yet, right? Or you're still reconfiguring it to believe in you, I think is really powerful.
Great. I've been scared since I was 3 years old. It's a long time to be scared. So fears are always going to be there. One of the things that my mentor told me one day when I was younger, and he said, you know, when you get into the art, you can only contribute, and your reward is the fact that you can contribute. And it made so much sense for me. And from that day, I said, okay, I'm gonna do it anyway. I'm scared, but I'm gonna do it anyway. And that's always been in my Bible.
Thanks. Let me do another question here. Thanks, Alex.
Hi everyone, Boki Tantoko. I use they, series pronouns, and Phil Ann. So I just want to say how amazing this multi-cutie stage of people is, because I'm also in arts education, and being able to like look at my young students who I'm just like, you are so lucky that you have folks like this making work and reading now that you can look at. Because like I didn't read like my first Asian American writer book until college, right? And so I also just I only found out about APIDA Arts because my friends Katie Chung and Aram Hansa-Fuentes, and like my mind is straight up blown because that you were talking about the like Chicago and the Midwest and cooperatives and the collaboration that can happen here because of that. You know, I'm like a Midwestern heartthrob. Like I will talk to anyone about anything. You know, tell you too much about that sale because you complimented like my shirt. Like, right, so it's like
In an elevator.
right, like
2 floors up.
you like make friends at Target and then you like leave because you're like, I forgot what I came here for. But I just wanted to hear, you know, the cicada singing with your mom in that backyard. Like I felt that, the talking with your uncle on the rainy roof, and I was like, this is, you know, when you say that like love for the city, and then all of you here, something, what is it about the Midwest, Chicago? If you guys have like one big like Midwestern Chicago story that makes you like love this place, because that's really big. You know, I was in the visual arts community here, and so many artist friends. They come here, they start here, they're supported here, and they leave, right?
Yes.
Because it doesn't stay.
Yeah, it's a really good question to say. What, love letter to Chicago, all of us. What do we think?
That's hard. I mean, there's too much. It's, I can only exist because of a place like this. And it's the worlds and how they collided, it made me, you know? And so that's part of telling this story. It's like and I mean, yeah, the cicadas, yes. The frigid cold, incredible arts that have to come out of that frigid cold, you know? It's this kind of thing. We're here in a room together at the Chicago Cultural Center. I performed here with Stir Friday Night, one of my very first shows 20 years ago. So it's like, I just had all these kind of just like constant memories of a great place to kind of find your voice. It really is. And then the fact that you can run into somebody at Target and they're your best friend, and you both leave without any, you know, yeah, you're good. That's why you go to Target.
In Chicago.
In Chicago, exactly.
I moved here 20 years ago. I didn't leave. I don't think I'm leaving forever, right? I go to Hawaii every year and a half-ish, every 2 years to reground and find my spirit again. But there's something about the smell of the city. There's something about the smell of the red line at 2 a.m. Like it gets in you, you know, you can't get rid of it. And that, I think then the city can't get rid of me for that same reason.
Maybe it's a hot dog.
On the train?
Yeah. And the Chicago hot dog.
Oh yeah, I was just thinking about like the paleta carts that come out, and like especially like on the lake. Like I remember the lake itself, the fucking lake is beautiful. Yeah, I curse in my classes. I curse too. I'm just like this is how it is. It's like when the weather just like when it goes from 0 to 40, and you're like it's summertime.
Yeah.
Right? Like let everybody take off their clothes, right? But then when it hits 60s, and you're like, you can just smell barbecue everywhere. Like everybody's out at the lake because the summers and the warm weather is so rare. Everybody just like jumps. And just like that sense, like you said, of like creating in cold, like it builds us, it builds character. You know, you get stronger because of it, and you create beautiful types of work from that too. I think.
To me, Chicago is one of the few cities in the world. It has its own music. So there's a Chicago kind of music that we love as a musician. And other cities don't have that. And aside from that, incredible theater scenes in Chicago. The other thing people don't know about this is Chicago has the most interesting independent professional wrestling.
Well, there's the wrestlers
I tell you, there are more independent professional wrestling leagues than any other cities.
too. So that's something Tatsu have to talk about later, because I've never heard him say the word wrestle in the 25 years of his life. How about you, Richard? Why are you in Chicago?
No one else wanted me. No, I moved to Chicago right out of college because my friends and I started a theater company, as most people fresh out of college theater school do. We started a theater company and realized how much work it is, and stop. So all props to people like you that are running theater companies right now, as it is a lot of work. I was here for a while, and I just fell in love with the city. I ended up leaving for a little bit. I went to New York for like 4 months, and that's all I could last in I was like, I gotta move back to Chicago. Chicago is where I feel at home. Chicago is where I found a community. Chicago is where my friends are. Chicago is where theater I like to see happens. Chicago is where the music I like to see happens. Chicago is where all the art I want to see happens. The art museum, the band venues, all of this stuff is all in Chicago. Every time I thought maybe I should move someplace warm, Los Angeles, and get away from this light and this frigid cold, I just can't, I'm gonna miss this and this and this. Great pro and cons list, and the pros for me far outweigh the cons. I've been in Chicago for over 10 years now, and you know, Hannah and I were talking earlier. I've been in Chicago for 10 years. I've ridden the Red Line at 2 a.m. and I've drank enough shots of the Lord that I am now Chicago.
So we have so much pride for this city, and I think that one thing that we keep coming back to is that it's the people here. It's the community that calls us and we call to them. And that's why I'm so honored, and all the people watching online and everybody here, thank you so much for coming to our inaugural night of the first MCA, and again, if you have any, this is what we do in theaters now, right? If you have any pocket change, if you'd like to donate anything, there'll be somebody on the way out if you want to just throw some money in the bucket, and it does count because it's a symbol. It's a symbol that you have something, a form of energy that you're using to support the festival and the artists in it, so thank you. All right, everyone, we'll see you later this weekend. We're going to do a floor photo op, right? Where's Anthony? Okay, thanks.